You're with Des'ree and Shuang, and welcome to the Cohort by SMU. Coming up today, we'll be exploring the many expectations of youths in Singapore and how we navigate through it all. Des will be sharing about local expectations you face and how our own expectations have shifted from our parents' generation. Following up, Shuang will be sharing about the rise of unorthodox ambitions that don't particularly fit into the expectations of others and how we balance the two. But first, here's the news.
What makes the Singaporean Dream? For those out there who recognize the term, you've probably heard of the Singapore card game with the same name. The game pokes fun at these typical Singaporean milestones, where players take on roles like the complaining auntie or the abeng, while competing to collect as many Singaporean dreams as possible. This includes getting a BTO on their first try or completing NS, all in good fun. So, Des, what are some of the other milestones you can think of?
Wow, okay, Shuang, to me, milestones seems to start from the moment you enter primary school. So it's like doing well in your PSLE, scoring well for O-levels to get into a good JC or good polytechnic, and then finally it's to get into a good local university, which is where we're at right now. But then after school, you have to immediately think about starting to work, and you start working until you're married at around age 30. So I guess the Singaporean dream is just to continue hustling and never stop.
Kinda agree with you on that, because there's this ideal image of how our education should look like and how we should have gone about pursuing it. And these high standards are really made clear during our childhood and during events like family gatherings, where we always have our aunties and uncles coming around to boast about what they have been doing in their own lives. And so everyone wants to take the opportunity to compare and compete with each other at their various stages of life, like in PSLE, in relationship status, about their kids, about their work, etc. And there's always this sense of judgment that's present throughout these interactions.
Right? I totally understand, Shuang. So I remember when I was younger, every time my parents took me to visit relatives, I think mostly during Chinese New Year, they would always intentionally decide what I should be allowed to say and what I shouldn't. So for instance, in primary school, long time ago, I was doing really badly in math and I was constantly failing all the exams. So I would never be allowed to talk about this because I guess they saw it as a black mark on my report card. Which, looking back at it now, it's quite upsetting because it feels like just because you have one bad grade, it discredits the rest of the good grades that I got. So Shuang, with that all said, how much do you agree with these expectations then? Do you think we should be striving to achieve them, or are they actually quite unattainable?
I think to some extent, these expectations sort of serve as a guide for us, especially because our parents live in a different time where the expectations were a mold for them, and to us to reference as we progress through our lives. Whether we decide to strive to achieve them or decide to chart our own path, I think that's really just up to us to decide. And if it fits your dream, go for it, but if it doesn't, it's really okay.
100% agree, Shuang. Also, if you're like me and you're an only child, you also don't have any siblings to reach out to for advice on what you should do and how you should navigate through your educational path. But they're definitely not perfect guides, these expectations. I think the gripe I have is how it romanticizes the idea of being fast, which is why people say you should definitely take the express route in secondary school, go to the JC route, because it seems to be the faster and popular preferred way. Also because of this, I feel like polytechnics and ITE colleges were stigmatized by the older generation. But just because you spend more time to reach your end goal, I don't think that should really be viewed as a bad thing. I mean, what's the big rush? Sometimes, what you said, sometimes people just need time to grow and to figure out who they are.
That's completely true, Des, and I'm really glad that stigma is slowly disappearing. Honestly, taking some time to figure out who you are, what you like, and what you actually want to do with your life shouldn't be considered a waste of time. Even if we look at how these expectations have evolved, we can see that everybody wants different things over different periods of their life.
That's right.
Taking our grandparents' generation for instance, the dream back then was to find a job for life and stick to it till the end. What mattered to them the most was job security. But for our parents, it was all about going where the money went. You could stay in a job, but if an opportunity to get a higher salary comes along, you'll want to take it.
Wow, okay, you know what, Shuang? I never really saw it that way, but you're right, now that I look back at it. Our expectations keep evolving. Right now, I think for our generation, I would say that money is still very important to us, of course, but there are other factors that are taken into account. And I think one of the most important ones nowadays is having a proper work-life balance.
I think it's a pretty great improvement from this perspective of the past and how they viewed life. Because it shows that while we still respect the hustling of working hard, We now know not to compromise on other aspects of our lives, such as personal time, mental health, and our relations with others.
That's right, hashtag self-care. However, it's definitely not easy to stray away from expectations, is it? Like, on one hand, there's a part of you that wants to achieve them because you want to make your parents proud, your family proud. But on the other hand, if these expectations are so different from what you actually want in life, is it worth it to ignore your dreams just to please others? Stay tuned because we'll be talking more about this after the break.
Welcome back to the Cohort by SMU. So, in our previous segment, we talked about societal expectations for youths. Now, Des and I will delve into how youths challenge these expectations, especially in the entertainment industry. Recently, there's been a rise of the number of content creators, right? I think we have more youths who are looking to become TikTokers and Twitch streamers, rather than the conventional jobs like doctors and business owners.
That's right, Shuang. And I think one reason for this lies with the digital transformation of the world. Society's need for entertainment has created more jobs in the entertainment industry. A decade ago, we couldn't have imagined that we'd be able to earn a living by creating content on the internet. But that's exactly what Twitch streamers, influencers, and content creators are doing right now.
It's especially interesting because people are drawn into the content, but stay for the content creators' personalities.
Yeah.
The main reason why online followings can really thrive is because they form parasocial relationships between the content creator and their audience.
Wait, Shuang. I've never heard of the word parasocial before. What does that mean?
Do you want the dictionary or do you want a general definition?
I will take whichever version you give me.
Okay, I think parasocial relationships are really that the audience interacts with like content creators on platforms like Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you sort of get to know their real lives, you sort of get to know them as a person and form that sort of connection across screens. But at the end of the day, you're not really friends, you're just somebody looking into the life of another person.
Okay, I see, I get it.
So I guess that being a content creator might be appealing, but it definitely has its uncertainties such as unstable income. When you are faced with the notion that you can connect with people all around the world over a common interest, and you can attract people to watch you for your personality, I really see why people will go for it, especially with the addictive notion that thousands of viewers all over the globe will see you as a person and like you for it, which may be uplifting in some cases and even an ego booster in other cases.
Yeah, for sure. I think the rise of TikTok itself has shown us how content creation process has also been simplified, right? Like in the past, when YouTube first gained attraction as a content platform, creators would spend like so many long and hard hours trying to achieve the perfect video setup. They would invest in equipment and even consider like hiring external editors. But now with TikTok, we see creators filming and editing all from their phone. Like I've noticed in Singapore, a lot of top creators love doing content centered around like simple skits based on commonly shared experience. Like for instance, one of my favorite TikTokers is this guy called Fauzi Azhar. So his content centralizes around like adopting this disciplined master persona, and if you scroll through his feed, it's really interesting because while he adopts this persona, it's always in this specific position where one hand is carrying like 8,000 different items and then another hand is holding a microphone that echoes extremely loudly in his house. It like vibrates off the wall. And it just feels like when you're watching, it's like a blast from the past, but with a very interesting twist.
I think I need to go and check out this TikToker. I also want to share about this one TikToker user. He's called Boblet, and he's like a food critic that visits a huge variety of food outlets, from like bubble tea stores all the way to cafes to just review about their menu. And the way he presents himself in his voiceover is like super entertaining because he's really just being himself, and it sounds like you're listening to your friend sharing about their trip to a cafe. And I think with all our experiences with TikTok, Instagram, there's really a spectrum of content you can find on all these social media platforms, and at the rate that all of them get pushed out, it must be really hard for creators to like stand out from the rest. I think to some extent, it's a game of luck because you're leaving your work in the hands of an algorithm. However, it does get unfortunate because I do see content creators who put a lot of effort into their crafts and barely reach 1,000 likes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shuang. The algorithm is definitely super unpredictable. And I guess that's why even though being a content creator may be appealing with the limitless creativity you can have, it's due to this unpredictability and uncertainty that some people may view this career choice as a very unsustainable one.
I agree with you, Des, especially because the internet can be fickle. So if people don't like you, they can decide to dox you or attack you on the internet. Like, there are toxic behaviors such as cancel culture, where you can lose your entire livelihood in like less than a day due to old messages resurfacing. And if someone doesn't like your tone, you could very easily get attacked by all the keyboard warriors out there and get cancelled.
Yes, I know. I have seen it.
And let's not talk about whether these content creators deserve it or not, alright? But the fact that you can lose your reputation, an entire career, just by people like typing furiously on their various mobile devices is pretty scary actually.
It is, but isn't it interesting that it hasn't really deterred so many of the youths trying their hand at being content creators? Like, people are still very interested to achieve this like aspiration they have of being influencers, TikTokers, or like Twitch streamers.
And I really think that a lot of them are doing great for themselves. But regardless of their performance, there are just as many users praising these content creators as there are ridiculing them. I think it's especially prevalent in Singapore because traditional jobs are really valued, and there are critics out there who insist that being a content creator really doesn't align with the notion of a Singaporean dream.
Yeah, and I think also many adults just think that dabbling in content creation means you're not doing well in life, never mind if it's your passion. But there are actually a lot of skills that get put into the test in the process of doing content creation. So like, on top of learning how to produce your own video, which requires like, filming and editing skills, you also need to know how to brand and market your content and make sure it actually resonates with your audience. So it's definitely more than just hitting an upload button.
I completely agree with you, Des, on this, because there's like so many hours of work that's put into just those few minutes of screen time. The future of content creation is pretty volatile, and I think a successful content creation career is fully reliant on likes and viewership. Regardless, I don't think it makes content creation a bad job that should be avoided.
That's true, but at the same time, I think we can't forget that the parents who set all these expectations, which society eventually recognizes as Singaporean milestones, only do it because they care for their children and they kind of hope that their children will grow up to be successful and financially independent.
Okay, to quote a favorite drama of mine, to what extent should we sacrifice the single plank bridge of our ambitions to follow the crowded broad road path paved by societal expectations?
That sounds like a very deep drama that you're watching. I think we can always try to balance our ambitions and society's expectations. You don't have to commit to only one path. We should dare to explore and take risks while also learning to face our failures.
I really agree with that, and I think that something that we've all forgotten is that at the end of everything, life is just a trial and error process. We're always going to be exploring and figuring out what we want to do in life. So I think what we're trying to say is by fully committing to being a content creator, it may suggest sacrificing other opportunities in life, especially because it's a job that is highly dependent on the crowd's favor. So I think you can pursue TikTok if it's your passion, but don't completely close off all other doors and job opportunities.
Well said, Shuang. So before we wrap up today's conversation, here's a great film recommendation called Singapore Dreaming, which was released back in 2006. So this film centers around your Singaporean family and how each member struggles to face the weight of society's expectations. Okay, no spoilers, but one of my favorite scenes is actually from the trailer, so it's really not a spoiler. So it's this moment where Dick Soo and Serene Chen's characters are arguing about their status in life, and Dick Soo's character says this. Yeah, you gotta hold on to your seat for this. This is a really impactful quote, okay? Nowadays, people look at what car you drive, what house you live in, and what uni you go to. If you want to make it, you've got to look like you've already made it. Something about that scene really struck a chord with me because that's really what expectations do to your psyche, right? They make you think that if you're not fulfilling them, you haven't made it in life. And it's crazy how a film from almost like a decade ago is still highly relevant today. So do check it out because it's definitely a lot of food for thought.
That was actually a pretty good reenactment of the quote.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna add that into my movie list. So I think overall, these societal expectations are not inherently bad. The expectations were always there to protect us and guide us to lead a good life. But at one point, they became stifling and rigid and prevented us from pursuing our own passions. As the youths who seek to create our own future, let's take charge of it and just do what we want to do. Because I think it's better to regret doing it than to regret not doing it at all, right?
Absolutely. And that's all from Shuang and Des. Once again, you're listening to The Cohort by SMU.